Probate can be a confusing process, but in this video we'll break down the key facts you need to know. Before we get stuck in, make sure you like, subscribe, and comment below. Your support helps us bring you more helpful content. Right, so what are we covering today? We'll be talking about probate, what it means when you need it, and the steps involved. By the end of this video, you'll have a much clearer idea of how probate works and what you might need to do if you ever have to go through it. We'll also touch on some common misconceptions about probate. There are quite a few myths out there that can make the process seem more daunting than it is. Stick around and we'll clear those up for you. Finally, we'll go through some practical tips to help you manage probate if you find yourself in that situation. It's always good to be prepared, so let's get started. Probate is the legal process of dealing with someone's estate after they've passed away. This includes everything from paying off debts to distributing assets to the beneficiaries. The purpose of probate is to ensure that the deceased person's wishes are honored and that the estate is handled properly. One of the first things people often wonder is whether they need probate at all. Not every estate needs to go through probate. If the estate is small or everything is owned jointly, you might not need to deal with probate. But if there are significant assets or the estate is complicated, probate is usually necessary. The process starts with applying for a grant of probate if there is a will, or a grant of letters of administration if there isn't. This grant gives the executor or administrator the legal right to deal with the deceased person's estate. It's important to note that you can't start sorting out the estate until you have this grant. Once you have the grant, the next step is to value the estate. This means listing all assets and liabilities. It's a crucial part of the process because it determines whether inheritance tax is payable. Remember to include everything: property, savings, investments, and even personal possessions. After valuing the estate, if inheritance tax is due, it needs to be paid before you can distribute anything to the beneficiaries. This can be a bit of a headache, but Revenue and Customs merely provides guidance to help you through it. It's worth seeking professional advice if you're unsure about any part of the process. Next, the executor or administrator needs to settle any debts or outstanding bills. This includes things like mortgages, loans, and utility bills. It's essential to ensure all debts are paid before distributing the remaining assets. Failing to do this can lead to legal issues down the line. Once debts are settled, you can start distributing the estate according to the will, or if there's no will, according to the rules of intestacy. The rules of intestacy set out who inherits if there's no will. This can be a bit complex, so it's wise to get legal advice if you find yourself in this situation. People often worry about how long probate takes. It can vary widely depending on the complexity of the estate. On average, it takes between 6 months to a year, but it can take longer if there are complications. Being organized and thorough can help speed up the process. Another common concern is the cost of probate. There are fees involved, and these can add up, especially if you use a solicitor or professional executor. However, some people prefer to handle probate themselves to save on costs. It's a personal choice, but make sure you're comfortable with what's involved before deciding. There are also some common misconceptions about probate. One myth is that probate is always needed, which, as we mentioned earlier, isn't always the case. Another is that probate is a quick process, but it can actually take quite a bit of time. Understanding these points can help manage expectations. Some people also think that probate is only about distributing money and property, but it involves much more. It includes dealing with taxes, settling debts, and ensuring everything is done according to legal requirements. It can be a lot to handle, but knowing what to expect can make it less overwhelming. Lastly, let's talk about some tips to make probate process smoother. First, keep good records. Document everything you do, from phone calls to payments. This will help if any questions arise later. Second, don't be afraid to ask for help, whether it's from a solicitor, a financial advisor, or even friends and family. Support can make a big difference. Probate can be challenging, and you don't have to go through it alone. That's part one of our look at probate. In the next part, we'll cover more specific scenarios and answer some of the most frequently asked questions about probate. Make sure you stick around for that. Right, so let's talk about the steps to take when dealing with probate. Breaking it down into manageable parts can really help. First up, you need to find the will, if there's one. This document is crucial as it names the executor and outlines the deceased's wishes. If there's no will, the estate will be handled according to the rules of intestacy. Next, you'll need to apply for the grant of probate or grant of letters of administration. This is done through the probate registry. You'll need to complete a pay-an-e form and pay a fee, so be prepared for that. Once you've got your grant, the next step is to value the estate. This includes listing all assets and liabilities. Remember, accuracy is key here, especially when it comes to inheritance tax. If inheritance tax is due, it must be paid before any assets can be distributed. HMRC will guide you through the process, but it can be complex. Seeking professional advice can be beneficial at this stage. After dealing with taxes, you need to settle any debts. This means paying off loans, credit cards, and any outstanding bills. Make sure all debts are cleared before moving on to the next step. With debts settled, you can start distributing the estate according to the will or intestacy rules. This might involve selling property or transferring ownership of assets. Make sure to keep detailed records of everything you do. It's also important to keep beneficiaries informed throughout the process. Clear communication can help avoid misunderstandings and disputes. Regular updates will keep everyone in the loop and reduce stress. Finally, once everything is sorted, you'll need to prepare estate accounts. This is a detailed record of all transactions and distributions. It's a good idea to have these checked by a professional to ensure everything is correct. Before we move on to the rest of the video, if you are finding this helpful, please like, subscribe and comment, as it really helps this video reach a wider audience. Here is an example of how probate can work in real life. Sarah's father passed away, leaving behind a will that named her as the executor. Sarah had never dealt with probate before and felt overwhelmed, but she decided to tackle it step by step. First, Sarah applied for the grant of probate using the pay-an-e form. Once she received the grant, she valued her father's estate, which included a house, savings, and some personal items. She paid the inheritance tax using funds from her father's savings. After settling all debts, she distributed the remaining assets according to the will. Sarah kept detailed records and sought help from a solicitor for the more complicated parts. This methodical approach helped her manage the process smoothly. If you find yourself dealing with probate, the first piece of advice is to stay organized. Keep all documents in one place and make a checklist of tasks to complete. This will help you stay on top of things and reduce stress. Second, do not hesitate to seek professional help if you need it. Whether it's a solicitor, a financial advisor, or even friends and family, getting support can make the process much easier. And remember, your comments, likes, and subscriptions really help us out. If you found this video useful, please give us a thumbs up and subscribe to our channel. We really appreciate it.